Welcome back to Boss Uncaged Podcast. So off air, we had this whole thing about this naming thing, right? So his name was Bustin, it was Justin, it was everything else but Dustin. Like that's the man's name. So let's get that straight and out the way. But as you guys know, I like to give whoever I'm interviewing a particular nickname. So today's nickname is the Hormone Boss. So when I say hormone, it's kind of some people may think like, what kind of hormones is he actually talking about? What does a hormone boss actually do? What is that? So I want you to kind of tell a little bit more about you and what kind of hormones are we talking about today?
Okay, very cool. I like how we're starting this off. So I think people really overcomplicate, the word hormones, and it gets, if you're on Instagram and you follow any type of fitness thing or health thing, like everybody's chiming in from a million different directions and from all different types of angles and worldviews. And the word hormone, I think, gets really messy, for lack of a better term. All a hormone is, like the very basic and simple thing that is, all it is a chemical that your body creates to cause some sort of action or reaction. That's it. Now, there's multiple different types of hormones in your body, but don't overcomplicate it. All it is it's a substance that your body's going to create to tell your body to do something, whether it's, create muscles, whether it's increase blood flow or oxygen potency in the blood, all those fun things. It's just a catalyst. So it's very, very basic. But, for what we do, we focus on growth hormone. That's our, our pride and joy. And that's our thing. We focus on growth hormone and education on hormones, specifically primarily with men over the age of 35, from education to application to bettering themselves, all that kind of fun stuff.
Okay, so like let's time travel back, right? I mean, obviously now we got a definition of hormone. So I want to talk about you a little bit, right? So I think in another podcast you were talking about like you were raised in a minor league football household where your dad was on the bench and was smoking cigarettes. So I wonder, like, how did you go from being raised in that environment to then specializing in hormones?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. I grew up in I actually grew up separate from my father, but that's a fun story to tell. He was a minor league football player. The dude smoked cigs. It was kind of setting the stage of the environment that a lot of us grew up in, which is complete lack of any type of nutrition or health education, right? So that story is always kind of, throws it right into your face. Like that's what we grew up in. Yeah. I grew up with a single mom. I was kind of raised by my grandma and my mom together. We didn't know anything about nutrition. We ate what we had. A gallon of milk a day was living large for us, and getting to have cereal. If we ever had cookies, that was the greatest thing of all time. So that was literally the extent of nutrition. Nobody taught you that stuff. So that's kind of how we grew up and where that story came from. But, that lifestyle and lack of education led me to a very unhealthy lifestyle throughout my teenage years, throughout the early part of my 20s. I'm a millennial. I had very little direction in life, didn't know what you want to be. You find yourself drinking, partying, smoking cigs, doing all kinds of stuff that's detrimental to your health. And one day somebody kind of slapped it out of me and was like, hey man, why don't you just stop doing that kind of crap and come to the gym? And that was literally the start of kind of all of this stuff. Now that was years and years ago, but with that gym, what that friend did for me when he brought me to the gym that one day was he taught me, and he doesn't know that he did it. And it's kind of how all these things snowballed and compounded. But what fitness and the gym and health and nutrition taught me was discipline and delayed gratification, which is, to be honest, how we build our entire business structure now moving forward, whether it's, fitness, health, nutrition, hormone products, whatever that is, our core virtues. And we use the word virtue instead of value, because virtue is something that you execute, that you do. Values are just something that you believe in. Our core virtues are delayed gratification, discipline, and basically integrity, doing the work. And it all kind of boils down to that one day when we flipped the switch, and instead of drinking all day, I went to the gym.
So, I think that's a pretty solid segue, because another podcast you were talking about like zero discipline, zero drive. And that day when you went to the gym with a friend, is like, that's when you was kind of like, okay, like you started to get more discipline because you wanted to see some results. You started to get more drive as you started to get more results. So I want to talk about like, how did that then stem into you becoming more so a strategist in hormone development?
Sure. So yeah, and discipline's a huge word for me, because up until that point, I had zero. That's part of like the whole family story. I typically talk about in interviews is we didn't have any discipline. No one taught us that. And I don't think it was anything, against my parents. I don't think anybody taught them that. So it's not fair to drop it on top of them, but that's my big thing is discipline. And that's something my family will always, that's the number one thing in our household. Now, how did it get me to this point? Well, that discipline, like I said earlier, snowballed and compounded, and it took me from a world of, I don't know any other better way to describe it, of partying and wasting time and doing nothing with my life, to finding something that I truly loved and believed in, which was the fitness, health, and wellness, world. And I was willing to do anything to be a part of that. And that meant leaving the old life I had kind of behind. And I found a mentor that I wanted to work under and I wanted to study under. And I went to him and I sat down and I said, hey, I can't afford to be a part of your program. I didn't have any money. So I couldn't afford to be a part of your program. I can't afford this. I will do whatever it takes. I'll take out your garbage. I'll clean your toilets. I will, literally sweep floors for you to just teach me. And that's exactly what I did. I took out his garbage and I cleaned up and I swept floors and I mopped gym floors and I scrubbed barbells. And this gentleman, who was an ex-Olympic decathlete, taught me what he knew about human performance and athletic development and all this really cool stuff that I loved. And during that process, like sleeping in basements and sleeping with bugs and that was part of the whole process, and, making no money. But I loved my life, and that taught me that discipline, that work ethic, that integrity that no one else had. And, it rolled over into other businesses where other businesses, that relationship kind of have come to an end from a working relationship, and other businesses picked me up to run their facilities. And before you know them, I was running their facilities, and I was being brought into other companies to do focus groups on products and developments, and one thing leads to another. And, businesses compound and opportunities come your way. And, there's a whole bunch that goes into this story, but I found my way with these products that we had come across out of this small company here in Florida, and I love them. And we use them in every asset and every venture that I had participated in, whether it was professional athletics, collegiate athletics, NFL off-season combine prep, all that fun stuff. And one time I was just like, with one of my now mentors and business partner, we're like, hey, why don't we just do this the right way? And let's just see if they want to sell it. And we walked in and we acquired the company. We had a deal struck in 3 weeks. And now, fast forward 5 years later, we're on every continent other than Antarctica, and you name the country, and we probably ship there. And it's been a wild ride ever since.
So, I think that's a fascinating hell of a story. Like, you're talking about HGH in a fashion that's usually not in context, right? You're talking about it from direct to consumer. So most times you may hear that it may be like to pharmaceutical, it may be to doctor, to client. So how did that stem when you kind of removed it from the needle to make it more so something that's a drinkable thing that's broken down in someone's stomach? Like,
sure. So yeah. So the important part is I didn't actually, and I have no problem saying this, I didn't create the formula. It was created by two brothers here in Florida. And what they did was, what we make is an alternative to human growth hormone. We make an alternative to the needle. And we saw that there was a massive opportunity in the market space for people who want the benefits for synthetic hormone drugs and are terrified, as they should be, of the potential side effects, risks, all the bad stuff that could pop up someday, dropping dead in parking lots at 55 years old. Like, that stuff is scary, and it should be. But the benefits and the health applications of what people go through, shouldn't be so scary, and there should be an alternative for them. So that was the opportunity that we saw of why we wanted to, grab these formulas and bring them direct to the market, instead of just leaving it in a space where only physicians had opportunities for this, or only people who kind of were in on the in club, or in this, this exclusive list of individuals, whether it be athletes or people who have tens of thousands of dollars to spend every year on aesthetic and physical applications. Everybody should have the opportunity to take advantage of this stuff.
So, I think what you're saying is a phenomenal thing. Obviously we're used to hearing about these hormones as far as drugs that enhance, right, or anti-aging. So what you're saying is that every single day person potentially could have access to this. So I mean that comes down to price, right? So if you're talking about price, usually in the medical field, you're talking about thousands of dollars to kind of get these hormones. So on the other perspective, what you're doing with direct to consumer, what's the price differential between these two?
It's about a tenth. If you want to go on the average, about a tenth the price, so 10%. So an average human growth hormone treatment can range anywhere from 3,000. The average for nationwide is around $3,000. If you include needles, doctor visits, and the actual drug itself in California, where it's highly, highly, highly regulated, and increasingly being regulated higher in other countries where it's not even available, you're looking at $10,000 a month. So, a couple $100 is a long way away from 3 to 10 G's. That's a ton of cash to be spending, every month for people, which, that's not normal.
So let's just talk about like your clients, right? I mean, obviously you're talking about professional athletes, you're talking about probably trusted physicians, but ideally, if you had to pick an avatar for this product, who would that avatar be?
Yeah, so we primarily focus on men over the age of 35 who are involved in some sort of competitive athletic sport. Now, I'm not saying professional athletics. I'm talking, weekends. I'm talking the weekend warrior, because that's most of us, right? The cyclist, the triathlon guy, the Ironman guy, the CrossFit guy, the guy that works out every day at the gym. These are the people that really tend to benefit the most from our products. And the reason why 35 is the age is because growth hormone specifically has been shown to decrease by about 50% by the age 35 in some cases. So that's why when you're like 40 years old or you're 41, 45, whatever, you kind of wake up one day and you feel like you've hit that wall. You kind of look in the mirror and you're like, man, I don't really look like I used to. I don't have the energy I used to. I don't have that drive. That's physiology, and that is happening to all of us. It happens at different rates, but that's why it hits like that 40, 45 years old is you're 10 years past that potential 50% depletion mark. You're really feeling it. A physician we have here in Tampa that we work with has a really great analogy, and that is it's like a paper cut every day after puberty. So as soon as you finish puberty, you're taking a paper cut somewhere on your body every day. Now, paper cuts, you're not going to die a loss of blood with one paper cut. But if you add a paper cut every single day, you're at massive blood loss. And then one day you wake up and you really feel it.
I think the way you're depicting it, I think you left out one element. And again, I'm very transparent. Before we got on the show, we talked about transparency. Well, obviously in that age range and what you're talking about is highly affected people. You're talking about libido as well too. And I mean, doesn't the drugs kind of affect that as well? I mean, let's talk about that for a minute.
100%. So, and it's a really important, I think the word libido, or you get into words like erectile dysfunction, et cetera, are kind of scary for people, but it is what it is. And in today's day and age, it is massively rampant, especially, clearly erectile dysfunction among men. In fact, to the point of it's about 1 out of every 3 guys experiences some sort of erectile dysfunction or libido issue. So that's 1 out of 3 guys. So if you're watching this, like driving in your car or you're in your office and you're watching, like look to your left and look to your right. If there's 3 guys in a row, one of you guys is suffering from it. So it's nothing to really be ashamed of. It's not like you want to go talk about it all day, like at the dinner table this weekend at Thanksgiving, but it is something that is dealt with, and it can be directly related to specifically these hormones, growth hormone being one of them. Basically what it comes down to is growth hormone is metabolized by the liver. Okay. So growth hormone is secreted by the pituitary gland. A lot of people don't know that it goes to the liver and then it gets converted into what are called growth factors. So a lot of these issues can actually, and all the science will show that it can get directly related to low IGF-1 serum levels. Now, let me explain. IGF-1 is called insulin-like growth factor number 1, is the direct metabolite of human growth hormone. So when you go to the doctor and you want to get tested and have blood work, the thing that they're going to test for is not growth hormone. They're going to test for IGF-1 because that is what is present in the bloodstream. So things like erectile dysfunction, diabetes, a lot of different neurological issues like Parkinson's, ALS can be directly linked to low serum IGF-1 levels. So that's where this whole kind of thing really comes into. And a lesser known fact, which really blows people away when we do a lot of our education, is that like right now, guys are really into testosterone, and they should be, right? It's huge. Testosterone is one of your most dominant hormones in your body. It's responsible for a lot of fun stuff, but you can't even absorb natural testosterone, or synthetic for that matter, without adequate levels of IGF-1 or growth hormone. So they're symbiotic within themselves. They have to be paired together, and they have to be adequately at appropriate levels.
So I mean that's a fascinating like delivery of a definition. So that brings me to, if you're talking about anti-aging, like how does this hormone, does it like heal the cells? Does it make the cells reproduce faster?
Yeah.
Like what does it do actually for the at the cellular level?
So what we do is, remember, growth hormone gets converted into IGF-1. Those are called growth factors. Okay. Growth factors are really cool. And I think they really don't get the screen time, for lack of a better term, that they should. Growth factors are awesome. So what they are is they're called protein cytokines. Okay. And all that means is they're cellular signals. So your body creates these growth factors from growth hormone. Okay. These growth factors, the cellular signals, get sent out into the blood to literally tell cells what to do. So you have all these cells in your body, right? They have to be triggered. They have to be told to replicate, to multiply, to differentiate. So that is cellular growth, right? Your cells, if you remember back in like 6th grade science class, you talk about cells splitting and multiplying. That's called differentiation. So what happens is let's say you're a guy and you're 40 years old, right? And you're at the gym and you're like, man, I don't recover like I used to. I feel like crap. My back hurts. Okay, cool. There's a reason why that happens now, and it didn't happen as much when you were younger in your early 20s. And that's that your cells would multiply and differentiate at a higher rate when you were younger. You have less cellular signals in your body when you are older. So you're not triggering the same type of differentiation and multiplication. So that's where growth factors come in. If you are a guy and you're quote unquote aging, right? Your skin is sagging. Again, cells that aren't replicating fast enough, collagen cells. You're not healing as fast as you like to. You literally are experiencing what we talked about, libido, which is anything from nerve issues to lack of oxygen potency in the blood that's actually getting to your genitals. All of those things are triggered by growth factors. So as those growth factors come down, you experience the side effects of those things, like not healing fast enough, recovering from workouts and growing muscle fast enough. You're not getting the oxygen potency in your blood that leads, to your junk that's helping you get aroused. Like it's all of those things.
So, I mean, it kind of goes back to what you were saying. You're saying like your ideal avatar is essentially men that are pretty much like weekend warriors that are going out doing it. But it seems like this is for every man, period, at a certain point in time in their life. I mean, obviously it's for every guy that wants to have libido, every guy that wants to kind of go and do something and not have all the side effects of recovery time. So again, like making it direct to consumer, you're doing yourself a really big service to the general public. So why don't people really know about this? I want you to talk about, like, obviously we probably see the negative in light. We probably see some marketing, but why is it not like an international thing to where people can kind of go into a drugstore and just pick it up?
Well, they can, and they do kind of now. We get calls from, we're on the phone with Qatar to Japan to Egypt. I had a gentleman ask me the same thing. He asked me directly, and he's like, well, this was, via digital. I wasn't standing in front of him, but he literally said the same thing. And he goes, well, if this was so great and this is all of these things, well, wouldn't this be all over the world? And I looked at him and I said, you're calling me from Egypt. It is like it made it to you. How do you not see that? And then he was like, oh, that makes sense. So it is. That's why this is a business show, right? That's why we acquired the company. We knew how special these things were and that they were in the hands of individuals who are phenomenal formulators and phenomenal biochem guys. But that's where we come in. And that's my job. That's what I do. Is I'm talking to you because the product needs to continue to grow and it needs to continue to make it into the hands of the individuals that can benefit it from the most. And that's what we do. And that's what our company is, pride ourselves on.
So, I think we brought up a couple of different times about like, you acquired this company. So I want to talk about like the business aspect of acquiring something like this. Like, how did you go about that? I know obviously you had a mentor, obviously you had to raise capital, but I want you to kind of walk through the steps to where day one, you selected this company for whatever reason until day two, when that money was actually transferred to their account and you had ownership.
So the first things first is when you are looking at acquiring a company or even starting a company, because I get a lot of younger guys and gals that have reached out to me or, us, and would like direction on, okay, how do I start this? Or what do I focus on this? Or how do I make these decisions? I think it's very important. And as cliche as it sounds, you have to pick something that you like really believe in. You have to pick something that is within your worldview, that you believe in, that is part of your life already. If you do not do that, everyone else will notice. It'll be, and what I mean by that is people can see inauthenticity. They can see it from a mile away, and even if they can't pinpoint it, they can feel it internally, and it will push people away from your brand, from what you do, from what you sell. When you sell pure authenticity, when you sell 100%, genuineness, your brand will catch on, and it will catch on no matter what it is with those who believe the exact same things you believe in. Now, why I just said all that is because why we acquired this company is I use these products. I used them. I bought them. I paid full price for them. In previous business ventures, I was head of sales and marketing for a national franchise for athletic development, collegiate, pro football, stuff like that. I found a way I'm like, okay, well, if we're training guys for the combine, if we are training, athletes off season from CFL, NFL, what's going to make them the best at what they do? Well, I put in these products. I didn't own any of the company. I had nothing to do with it. So we would infuse these products. I owned and created a fitness facility from the ground up, a methodology and stuff that, a gym that we created and developed. And when I ran that operation and launched that brand, I brought in the products because I knew that they worked. Like I believed in them so much. I've used them across multiple different business ventures. So it only seemed natural to be like, okay, well, this is a phenomenal opportunity to get into a space that I wanted to get into, the medical space, because I see the medical space as it has a little bit higher of a barrier to entry for competition. It has a little bit higher of a I want to use the right word here. It will withstand a little bit more of economic downturn. I like working in the medical space for, a lot of those reasons, some other reasons as well. But so this was the entry point into that space of something that I already believed in. And instead of me trying to recreate the wheel, I could get my hands on something that existed, that was tangible, that has, I've tested for years, and I saw the long-term and short-term benefits of it. So that's why we made a decision to kind of reach out and try and make that deal happen. And, years later, I read a book by the guy, I can't remember his name, but he owns and was CEO of Honeywell, they make like basically everything. And it was a book specifically on all of his acquisitions and why he would acquire. I wish I could remember his name. And it was a boring book, but it was very telling. It was still good from the educational perspective of how you decide what acquisitions to make and why you make them. And they still fall in that line of it makes sense for you. It's part of your worldview. It fits within, the parameters of who you are, what kind of business you do, and what kind of business you want to do.
I think it's definitely fascinating. 'Cause obviously earlier on you were talking about you didn't have any discipline, you didn't have any drive, you went to the gym, and by going through the gym, you kind of evolved into who you are right now. But I kind of figured it's kind of hard to believe that you didn't have some elements of who you are as a kid. So I want you to talk about you growing up. Did you have any of this pizzazz or insight or intuition that was just probably stuck under the rug until you realized it when you got older?
So I would say that as a child, I was always very outgoing. I was always very creative. So I played music, I played guitar, and I learned like saxophone and stuff from like 7 years old, I think in second grade, played piano. Like those were my things. I was really into, to music and creativity, and like I'm that side of the brain, whatever side, left or right, whatever that is my thing. I've always spoken. I've always been in front of people. I've always been kind of going out and trying new things was never an issue for me, if that makes sense. So maybe the discipline kind of came from that. Like I would self-teach myself things. I took guitar lessons for a little bit, but then I would teach myself further and further and further along. If there was something I wanted, I found out a way to get it, good, bad, or indifferent. That has never been an issue for me. So I guess, but also as I get older, I start to think things that you really want in life as a child, like things that you're missing, you almost start to reach out for as you age. So the lack of structure, the lack of discipline, the lack of those kind of foundational pieces, I'm like making and mincing all kinds of words here, but those types of foundations are those things that I think children really benefit from. I did not have. And it was something that, I found in something else that I think I was missing in life. So I grasped onto it like crazy, super hard. And then now it basically just defines who I am.
Wow. So, I mean, to the listeners listening, I mean, I always like to ask a question around that particular topic, because you may have Dustin as a child in your house, and you may be pulling out your hair trying to figure out like what to do with this kid. But I mean, obviously he just told you. I mean, he just kind of give you an insight into that. I mean, you just have to feed into like whatever that kid is about, and try to see past the negative. So if I could ask you to define yourself in just 3 to 5 words, who you are today, what 3 to 5 words would you use to define you?
Wow. I don't know if I've ever been asked that before. The first word that immediately comes to mind is driven. And like, I don't know why, but that, driven, motivated is the same word, but, driven, disciplined, and optimistic, I think would be my 3. I don't know why, but those are the first 3 that come to mind.
So let's spin off optimism, right? Obviously, in what you're doing in the medical field, it's almost like a bipolar. There's people that it's like gung ho, give me everything you have. I want to buy every single box. And then you have the complete assholes. It's like, it doesn't work. What are you talking about? You're a liar. I want you to talk about the worst case scenario that you've dealt with in your career in the pharmaceutical field, that you dealt with a client that was disbelieving, but you had an opportunity to turn that around to make them more of an advocate for what you do.
Okay. So actually, this happens a lot. And I'll use kind of, it's typically always the same story repeatedly, and it actually leads to a success for us. So with our product, we do sell a product that offers really awesome benefits, from that being like metabolic enhancement, performance enhancement, workout recovery, stuff like that. And those are things that people really want, right? This is a business show, so I'll say it, but I was in the fitness business for years. Okay. Training, athletic development. I started a facility that I was for sure was going to change the world, and it was going to be huge, and it was going to be all this stuff. Right. And it was really, really hard. I mean, it was really hard. It was 4:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. every night. The business did not succeed. It did not go well. I have no problem saying that we focused on the wrong things backwards. And I think that really played to why this business is so successful today, or our business today is so successful, is because I basically did the opposite of everything I did with one of my biggest failures. But what I'm getting at is, when I was in that business, I would look at one of my chief of operations, and I would say to him, man, if I own another business after this, I'm not selling this stuff. I'm going to sell pizza and beer. And it was an analogy. It was a metaphor. It's because people will always buy pizza and beer. It's something that they want. It's something that gives them a quick fix. It's something that it's enjoyable for them. So now let me tie this to what I was saying. When it comes to the types of products that we sell, people want a quick fix. They want something to fix right now. When we are selling fitness is something you have to come in, you have to work out. It's painful. It takes a long process. It's a hard sell, man. It's a terribly hard sell. So when we're getting in business now, it's like, okay, well, now we sell products that offer these benefits. These people want this stuff right now. They want to wake up tomorrow and they want to be 20 pounds lighter. They want 6-pack abs. They want to never be sore from a workout again. And there are times where we will get messages from individuals be like, your product didn't work. It didn't work. I'm pissed. And I understand that you might think it did not work. The questions are always like, okay, well, how long did you take it? And we always get, you have to quantify the words didn't work, because if you leave it to everybody who has, an issue with a product that didn't work, and it's a month or a 3-month program and you've done 14 days, you have to identify that you're 2 weeks in, like it takes time. So that is the main issue that we face with our products is with hormone products, a physician of a synthetic and prescribing a synthetic drug like prescription human growth hormone will tell you, you need to commit to 6 months. You need to commit to 6 months and we will see and reevaluate if this works or not. Well, with our products, we get reports of individuals feeling and noticing the effects within 12 to 14 days, physical effects like 4 to 6 weeks, and blood work always shows, 1 to 3 months. But you'll get individuals who are very upset that I haven't lost a pound. It's been 12 days. Totally understand. Or you get individuals who say, I took it from, I'm 3 weeks in, haven't felt a thing. I don't feel it doesn't work. Totally get it. How we win these individuals over to take it back to the beginning of, we go, okay, I totally understand. Go ahead and finish out your first month and call me in 2 weeks, or totally understand, and we'll do whatever we can to make them happy because I'm not in the business of upsetting people. Mm-hmm. But you'd be surprised how many times people will come back in 2 weeks after they stop and go, or just reorder. You see their names pop up, they reorder, or they go, okay, now I understand. Because it's a very gradual type feel. You don't feel cells. You don't feel your cells right now splitting, multiplying, differentiating. It takes time. So when they stop taking the product and they're no longer getting the benefits that they were feeling gradually, so a little bit unnoticeable, those first 2 weeks, they start to feel how they used to feel before they started. And then they come back and like, you know what? I'm a lifer. I totally get it. I totally understand. And they're clients for a long, long, long time. So we feel things like that a lot. People want instant gratification. They want it right now. And how we handle it is we help individuals put in place proper metrics, proper quantifiable metrics to help understand what to expect. So managing expectations, but also a lot of times clients or customers need to understand why they think something doesn't work. You have to put quantifiable metrics into place. That's with anything. You can say a business doesn't work, but if the metrics show you're netting $1 million a year, well, then you can say whatever you want. I mean, you're netting $1 million. What you do with $1 million after you net it, I don't know. But to say that something doesn't work, but you don't have quantifiable metrics in place isn't fair for anybody. So that's how we do that. We will work with clients. We will work with them on putting together quantifiable metrics to make sure that the product is not working for them and that it doesn't. And very rarely, either individuals don't follow through and want to keep track of those metrics, or they come back and they're actually a happy client moving forward for months and months to years.
I think it's definitely a fascinating way of delivering that answer. I mean, think of it from the other spectrum, right? So you may have do-or-diers that are like they'll preach and they'll actually market the product for you. But let's talk about, like, is there a thing as far as having too much product? Do you have anybody out there thinking that they're going to become Wolverine because they're going to take enough of these hormones so that they can self-heal themselves? Is it a possibility of overdosing on the hormones?
No, and I totally get it, but we're also a very transparent company. We don't make claims that aren't true. We don't sell you the world and not deliver. We are not a synthetic drug. So we fly in this gray area of not a synthetic drug. So it's it's a real substance we harvest here on Earth that isn't a synthesized drug pulling out of a petri dish from recombinant DNA, but it's it ain't protein powder. We fly in this realm of underneath pharmaceutical and above supplements. So we're very clear with our messaging that you're not going to take this product and take it as Bruce Banner and wake up the Hulk and blast through the back of blow through a cinder block wall. Like, that's not what we sell. If we do not sell products like that. We don't sell products that can take you and push you past, or what we would call, an abnormal range. It doesn't have the ability by design. So everything within each vial is molecularly identical to what your body already produces. So anything that you can't use, or basically, let's just say it's a gas tank and you're topped off, you just excrete through urine or sweat. You can't overdose. And, we do get questions with people all the time. Like, hey, if I take 3 a day, is this good? Yeah, it's good for business for me, but it's not going to do anything for you. So we just say, there's no need to do that. You don't need to take 3 a day. If you want to, and it makes you feel good, go for it. I think you'd be wasting your money. I'm not going to say you're not going to benefit more, but I don't think the bang for your buck is where you're going to want it to be.
So let's just talk about like the scope of where you are. I'm obviously perception, right? Like how long have you been on the road to where you are right now? Earlier on, we talked about like the hurdles that you've overcome and like the actual purchasing of the company, but in actual years, is it a 5-year, 10-year, 20 years? How
We
long?
acquired, are you talking about the company that I'm talking about right now? That was
Yeah,
December. Yep. So
yeah,
we
yeah.
acquired this company in December 1 of 2018. So what is it,
Okay.
22? So it's like we just had 4 years. Yeah. So we're, at 4 years moving into the 5th year. So prior to that, I mean, my kind of aha moment in life of starting to give up everything and sleep with spiders and take out people's trash, that was like 26 or 27, I think. I'm 37 now. So it's about a decade.
About 10 years back. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at this from a perspective of if you could go back in time and you had an opportunity, like literally you have a maybe a 60-second window, you pop in, beam out of nowhere, and you're in front of yourself at a younger age. When would you go back to? What would you say to yourself to change the outcome to happen a lot faster?
So, oh man, I hope any parents aren't listening because they're going to be upset with this answer. I wish I would have gotten to myself. Number one, I want to preface this.
Yep.
I literally, and I know when people say this, but like, I'm probably the luckiest guy on earth right now. Like I would not change anything because I would hate to like start the bad, like the butterfly effect. And then you wake up and you're like, oh, I have no arms. But so I wouldn't change anything. So I don't actually think about that a lot, but I would probably, slap the taste out of my mouth when I would be about 18, 19 years old. I had had plenty of fun by 18, 19. And I would stop myself from ever having signed up from a college course or ever paying any money from that and paying and acquiring student loans. And I would have handed myself a couple books and said, kind of like, get to work. Or like, I mean, I only have 60 seconds, but if you can't tell by the show, I could probably get a lot said in 60 seconds because I don't shut up. But yeah, like there was a few. Yeah, that's what I would. I'd, you had a lot of fun in high school. You had a lot of fun, maybe, 18, 19. I'd stop you right there and kind of, there's a few pieces of material that I would highly recommend for people, but that would, hopefully kind of jar me in the right direction.
I think it's funny that you said you'll smack the taste out your mouth because anyone that has teenagers in their life, I mean, they could definitely relate to wanting to smack the taste out of a teenager's mouth, right? So, and I'm a big believer about what you're saying. Obviously, like there's college for a reason, and then there's kind of like figuring out what you want to do and then getting the right mentors or the right courses to get on that track a lot faster versus having an abundance of death for a degree that you're never going to use. So you alluded to material. Let's talk about, obviously in that journey, there must have been some books that you've read that kind of got you to where you are. What books would you recommend to your younger self that you read that you want our listeners to read?
Oh man. Okay. So it depends. And that part of my life journey, there's a book that I really liked that was called The Mountain Is You. And it's not a business book at all, actually. It's about understanding that of kind of like gaining access to your ego, not gaining access, but kind of eliminating your ego, like getting your understanding that like the whole world isn't about you. Like all the things that you're self-conscious about, or maybe that hold you back, it kind of like pulls the curtain away from that and helps you understand how other people look at you. So about self-awareness. And I will tell you from hiring, lots of younger salespeople, including my own demographic from millennials to Gen Zers or Gen X, I don't know what letter they call themselves or whatever. The number one thing I see in younger individuals, including myself when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, all the way through 25, 26, and probably early into my 30s, was lack of self-awareness, understanding, like the inability to see the way that I did things, like from an outside perspective looking in. That really holds people back from career growth, from self-growth, from in a lot of entrepreneurs who own real businesses. I believe that it holds them back massively as well, or keeps them kind of small, for lack of a better term. So that book was really important to me. And I read that book, I think when I was like 35, 36. And I've bought copies repeatedly for people. And it's not the most, it's not the smartest work. It's not Summa Theologica from, Aquinas. It's not like the most, this incredible, piece of literature that just changed the world. But to me, it was very redundant. It was very simple. But if you can you got to kind of read it and look back at yourself and be able to see yourself from the outside. So that was a really big book. If you're talking about business books, I think it depends what business you're in, but I think the book that made a massive change in our business that I absolutely applied, and now we're working on applying it with one of my business partners and one of his companies in this staffing industry, was the book called The Blue Ocean. You ever heard of that book?
Yep.
Okay. Blue Ocean is huge. And then they have like a follow-up like Blue Ocean Strategy. And everybody seems to hear this book, but I mean, did you read it? Did you actually, you have to go through that book and actually use it as a workbook. We did. And I will tell you that it completely changed our business. It really, really did. So that book was a huge one. And then there was another book called, I was talking about it this morning about, I can't remember the name of it. It's like the Little Black Book of Sales or something like that. And it's not a lot about selling, but there's a really good point in that book about learning how to specialize and to kind of cut the fat off your business. And that was a big one. So I guess just right off the cuff, the top two for sure. And the third one would be, an added benefit.
So, I mean, obviously with all this different insight, and it seems like you've been hoarding it for a period of time and you're utilizing it, right? Like you're absorbing it and then you're putting it back out into the ether. Have you started to, or have you created your own version of a book that you've authored as of yet?
No, not even close. Not at all. That was one of my goals in life, was to write a book. And I was actually going to call it like Memoirs of a Dropout, because I mean, for the most part of my life, I was, an addict, a dropout, just an overall horrible human being. Like really looking back, like most people don't realize, but just, not treating people well. And I mean, I did, I was a dropout. I dropped out of everything. So that was that. It's funny that you should say that. I don't think I've ever told anybody that, maybe then like a friend or two, but no, it's always been kind of a goal, is to write a book, something like that, but it's not really a priority at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're saying it's not a priority, but I could definitely see like with your style and the way you're delivering the content of this interview, I would definitely say it brings a lot of value, especially to the avatar that you're communicating to, which is millennials, right? To kind of help them kind of get through that crux part of being between 18 to 25, like you said earlier. Like that 7-year span is a difficult trying to figure out who the hell you are, and you've done that. So why would you not want to leave those breadcrumbs for the next generation to help
I do
find it a lot faster?
I do 100%. My main goal in life right now is I want to create, develop, and offer schooling for individuals, and starting specifically for young men, all the way elementary through, whenever I got to kind of craft it out. But no, that's my goal in life right now. And it's because I think that, and this is my personal opinion and worldview, but I think men are, especially in this country, are heavily misguided, and that I'll be very honest with you. I didn't have a father that was really present in my life. Like he existed, but he had other priorities, and I missed out on a lot of that. What I wish I would have gotten was direction and discipline and understanding certain things, especially as a man. I was raised by 2 women. So, and they were great. I mean, I'm very happy with, how my life turned out, but I see around me, and I have had several young men work for me. And even just, that I've reached out, or that I speak with, or that I kind of talk to, that grew, even if they had fathers in the household, have grown up without a really strong male presence that helped teach them things that our older generations were always taught. And again, this is a personal opinion and worldview, but I think that we are losing out on a lot of really great ingenuity and advancement and socioeconomic world development. I just made that term up, but I think our men are not made it up, but I think men are really missing and lacking a lot of that direction, discipline, understanding their place in the world as men. And because they have lacked those things, they grow up to be adults who don't have any direction. And that's one of the reasons why I think, depending upon who you are, the collegiate route isn't always for everybody, because it puts people into these areas and they don't even know who they are yet, and then gives them degrees that cost them $250,000 that they don't even want to do. They don't know where their place in the world is. And when you have individuals who lack that purpose, that direction, and that self-awareness, you get unstable, you get emotional, you get weak human beings, and weak men cause big problems for people around them in the world. And I think that that's something that we're just missing here. And I would like to be a part of fixing that.
Yeah. I think that last statement was a genuine gold nugget, right? I mean, obviously you're saying weak men create big problems. So let's say you have an opportunity, right? And someone may not realize that they're weak. And again, we're talking to a younger generation. If you could leave, and I would say this could be the intro to your book, right? This is like the intro chapter to your book. What words of wisdom do you have for someone that may be weak-minded, that's causing big problems? How could they flip that?
Take responsibility. Take responsibility and learn accountability. Without personal accountability, you can never even take one step in the right direction, because you're not taking accountability for who you are to begin with. So if you feel, or you have something innate inside of you that for some reason that last sentence kind of rang true with you or made you think, then and this all comes back to self-awareness, self-introspection of understanding who you are and who you actually are out in the world, and how people perceive you, or how your actions are perceived, or how they actually, take part in the world. It's all for naught without personal accountability and understanding who you are, and that it's your personal responsibility to change those things. It's nobody else's. And no one's going to do it for you. That's the only thing. I mean, you can't pay somebody to do that for you. So no one will ever do it for you. You have to do it on your own.
Wow. So let's just figure out, how does someone get in contact with you? I mean, obviously you're dropping nuggets left and right. You're also talking about growth hormones that can absolutely help.
Right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about a mix of different things, right? So, I mean, obviously getting to know you as a president behind the company is probably more influential than talking about the product directly. So how does someone get in contact with you, or how do they get their hands on getting some of the growth hormones?
I always tell people to go to our Instagram. We're huge on Instagram. That was something that I actually fought tooth and nail when we were developing this brand and building it. I was like, no, we're not going to be a social media company. We are not going to be a social media. And you know what? It happened on its own, and it took off. So I don't fight too hard anymore. But if you go to the Instagram page, that's really where we live. That is who you can see the people using the product. I mean, it's a very community-based page. A lot of times we don't even have to answer questions that come in. People who use the products will jump in and answer them for us, and people share. It's all user generated material. Everybody throws in their stuff. It's really cool. And we're very, very active. So if you want to get a hold of us, or, if you want to reach out to me, reach out to the page first, tell them you want to get a hold of me. Somebody will drop you my email or something, and you'll be good to go. And that's at BioProtein Tech. So it's at BioProtein Tech. And you can check out our website if you want to do that too. It's bioproteintech.com. Same thing. BioProteintech.com.
Very cool. So I got a bonus question for you. If you could spend 24 hours with anyone, this person could be dead or alive, and you get to spend 24 hours uninterrupted with them, who would it be and why?
Jesus Christ.
And what's the why?
Regardless of your religious beliefs, he was the most prolific and I'm trying to think of the word that I have the word right on my tongue. He polarizing individual that the planet Earth has ever known. And the entire world has tried to blot out his name. No, and this isn't, I'm not talking about today's society, but for centuries and centuries and centuries, kings, emperors, every man of power has tried to blot out his name. And for some reason, take this for what you will, His name will never, it cannot be and has not be ever removed from this earth. And books have been burned and history has been rewritten and you can't stop it. So I can't see how you wouldn't want to spend any other time with anybody else. Somebody that has that type of power and that type of personality and that type of ability to change the lives. I mean, people were tortured for years and years and years on end to just deny his existence, and they refused. I mean, how could you, who else can you say that about?
I think the way you fulfill that question kind of leads me to another bonus question.
Yeah.
To you, right? So
yeah,
if you could be a superhero, who would you be and why?
Man, that's a really good one. Yeah, I'm not a big superhero guy, but man, I really always liked Batman. I was always a big Batman guy. He doesn't actually have any superpowers. Like, he was a normal dude. And depending upon which storyline you kind of want to follow behind Batman, he had a ton of resources at his hands, but what did he do with them? He used his resources to create, or at least attempt to do good for other people and people that didn't necessarily deserve it or not. But that was his entire worldview, was using the resources he did have for good. Not to mention, I mean, he dressed, I think he dressed the best. He had the coolest cars. And somebody's out there's gonna be like, oh no, Tony Stark was, I don't like Tony Stark. I think Tony Stark is a jerk. I think, you're going to get somebody really looking for my information, getting all upset about Tony Stark. I thought Batman was always the coolest, man. I always did. And I've always liked the dark, the mysterious, he just did it a very different way. And he did the exact opposite that that somebody like a Stark would do. Is he, was a recluse in and of himself, and he didn't take any of the credit for his actions. So I don't know. I guess you pulled that one out of me. I think Bruce Wayne is definitely the coolest.
Well, I think it's funny that you brought up Iron Man versus Bruce Wayne, because I mean, I also, when you think about like comic book history, I think they're probably the only two landmark billionaires that are in either series that you can kind of think right off the top of your head, right? So going into closing, I would like to give opportunity whoever I'm interviewing a piece of my show. So you're now the host of Boss Uncaged. I'm now your guest. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was your main driving force in wanting to create this show, or even reach out and talk to people, like me? Like, what's the whole thing? Like, what's the purpose? What's the, the look, the feel, the why?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had that question asked in several different ways, and it always comes back to me being on my deathbed, recovering from a stroke, and having an opportunity to obviously still live. And then realizing that I was not documenting my journey of business before that stroke. So when I came through, I would say, like, my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, was telling me, like, why don't you brand yourself the way you've been branding all these other companies you've been working with and working for the past 18 years. So that's when I went through this whole rebranding process, like we talked about earlier. Everybody was calling my first name Chanel, Chantel, Shinobi, everything else under the damn sun. And I was like, I'm just going to simplify to make it easy. Call me SA. And then I started publishing books, and I became a podcaster. So from then until now, I'm working on my 9th and 10th book, and I'm a podcaster that essentially gives opportunity to tell entrepreneurs' story, but it's more so breadcrumbs for my children, my legacy, and also your kids or other entrepreneurs that may be coming up to hear these stories and impact them to where they can become one of us or surpass us where we are right now currently.
I have a follow-up question.
Good.
So, and clearly don't pick me, but who would be your favorite guest prior to this show?
Shit.
And why, of course.
I think currently right now, I would still say Wiley Day was probably like my favorite episode, just because it wasn't because she was the first billionaire that I interviewed, but it was just because she was so profound in what she's doing, but she was so like a regular person. And for her to be ranked on 21 as far as Forbes self-made billionaire, and then the conversation that we had is much like what you and I are having right now. We're talking about her grandkids, talking about her, marrying into a PhD family. It was just like her insight that she delivered was so profound that if someone didn't get value from the episode, then they might as well not have a heart.
I will be going and listening to that episode now. So I appreciate that. That was great, man.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, man. I think you brought a hell of a lot of value to the table. I think like this conversation, like it was like riding a wave. It's like if you're used to surfing, it's like we were just surfing and riding in and up and up and down. I think you delivered so many different value and intuition to where someone can kind of see into your psyche and then utilize that to kind of grow and prosper.
I hope so. I hope there was something there that somebody can benefit from, of all the kind of mumbo jumbo and mushed up words and run on sentences, that it can help somebody maybe, save a few years of, pain, strife, and exhaustion to help them get there where they're trying to go faster.
Yeah, I think it's cool that you ended it with that. Because I mean, obviously, you do sell a product that's anti-aging, so I mean, it only makes sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm trying to help you physiologically and mentally. So
Great.
back for more.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much, SA. I appreciate the time, buddy. I had a great time.
SA Grant, over and out.